Going live right now. I gotta look at the camera. I've got two monitors on. This is one monitor. This is another monitor. So if anyone in this stream sees me over here, it's because of that. But welcome everyone to the live Semi-Sages Culture Club.
Woo!
Yeah. Those out there, if something's going haywire on our live stream, we haven't done it a little bit, just leave us a comment. If you know one of us, send us a text and I'll fix it really quick. But thank you all for coming and listening, either now in stream or if you're watching this after the fact and want to listen in on the discussion.
I like it.
This episode, we are talking about Hocus Pocus 2.
Woo!
That's a lot of energy, and I appreciate that. Sarah or Teresa, what do you guys want to give a little overview of the movie?
No.
I would be delighted to. So 29, 30-ish years ago, the world was blessed with the first Hocus Pocus. And it was all about the Sanderson sisters coming back from the dead because a young virgin lit the black flame candle, the mystical black flame candle, and brought them back to life as a part of the curse that they put on Salem. So without spoilers, because if you haven't seen this movie, please go do so. That is your homework. And 29 years later, current day, the Sanderson sisters are back. And there's three young ladies who've now brought them, well, I guess two young ladies who have brought them back from the dead because they had a little trickaroo thing happen to them in the sacred Forbidden Woods. This was a very interesting story. I had a lot of fun with it, but I'd like to open this up to discussion because I know we do not share the same opinions on this story.
What?
Don't mind me if I open something in the background.
Yeah, Molly is worried that our video is buffering for our watchers, so I apologize if that's something happening to you.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. And something I want thank you, Sarah, for giving that overview. And one thing I wanted to make sure we talk about is the importance of remembering that it's not about whether we liked it or not in Culture Club, although that's interesting. We're really trying to take away or analyze it in terms of what can we learn from this piece of media.
Mm-hmm. So to that note, there may be spoilers in this. We'll do the best we can, but if you haven't seen it and you're like, nope, I am waiting, I don't want to know what's going to happen in it, this may not be the best for you. But we'll do the best we can to kind of hedge our bets.
Yeah. All right. Do we want to start with maybe our top takeaway of what we think we can learn? I'm willing to start and not put you guys on the spot as much.
Go for it.
For me, I think the number one takeaway is the importance of knowing and sticking to your creative vision. So what I mean by that is I felt like in the movie, and this is spoilers, right? I felt like there were two competing creative visions. And one was kind of the target audience was the nostalgia viewers, the people who wanted, really love the Sanderson sisters, wanted to see more of that. And it almost had as if the main character was almost Winnie from the Sanderson sisters. And that's fine. That is one choice, right? But it almost felt like then at a certain point in time in the movie, it was almost like Disney was like, oh, wait, crap, this is a movie for teenagers and preteens, and the main character needs to be like a 16-year-old, and then try to make a different, then they were like, okay, then the target market was teenagers and preteens. And for me, it was like there were two competing ideas of who should be the main character. Should the main character be Winnie, or should the main character be, what was her name? Becca. And while there were some things that worked well, I took away like, man, if they would have just picked one, I feel like they could have developed things and really gone into depth that I wanted personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually felt like it was lazy writing. And maybe that did come from the disjointed feeling of it. I 100% agree. I felt like they were leaning too heavy on the nostalgia. I felt like they didn't even know who their market was. And what really bothered me about this was that they were obviously going for the nostalgia vibe, which is adults. Great. But they wanted it to be open to families too. They wanted to bring in the next people, the kids and the teenagers who were going to love Hocus Pocus and the Sanderson Sisters and everything else, which again is great. Pixar has proven they can do this. Pixar has proven that they can write movies that adults will adore and that children and families will adore. And I don't understand why they couldn't do this with Hocus Pocus.
See, now I completely disagree. I think that this had a multi-generational appeal to it. And I saw it as two parallel characters, Winifred and Becca, who had two parallel storylines going along at the same time, which we have seen before in other movies and other books as well. And, my fiance and I have a little bit of a generational gap. And he and I were both so enwrapped with this story. We love the characters. We love the character development. Could they have gone deeper into Becca's story? Absolutely. Absolutely. But this is their target audience. I mean, this is a Disney Channel plus straight to VHS kind of mentality movie of sorts, right? This didn't go to the box office. This was basically a head nod to the generation that grew up watching Hocus Pocus, because millennials made them change this movie. I think that's something we need to remember as well, because originally when they first started writing it, they were not going to invite the original ladies to play the Sanderson sisters. It was supposed to be like a weird reboot. And
that would have been so odd.
It would have been horrible.
That wouldn't have worked.
So I think that kind of that sort of odd off kind of feeling was them like, you know what, we're just going to give you guys what you want. And so I don't know if it was necessarily lazy writing or just like Disney being like, it's out of our control. You guys basically forced our hand into this. This is what you get. But I thought it was so sweet. And I thought my first reaction after I finished watching it was, it reminded me of the older productions of Disney, like from the 70s, where the older live action films from the 70s, like Bedknobs and Broomsticks, where they would
the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Yeah, there's just like they're having a total normal conversation and then we're singing and you're like, oh, this is what we're doing. Like, this is cute. And I love that the newer teenagers throughout the whole thing were like, who are they singing to? Like, totally acknowledging how it was kind of off, how it was weird. But I think that in doing so, they brought out the comedy aspects of it a lot more and made it kind of silly and quirky, which the original Hocus Pocus was absolutely silly and quirky. Mm-hmm. So it was definitely in that same vein of comedy, just with new technology, which was, I thought, a really nice spin on it as well. But yeah, so that was my thing with the parallel characters, was that they had to make like an hour and 32-minute movie. So they're like, what can we shove into this to make it entertaining, funny, and to have these characters still be identifiable, relatable? And I love the backstory we got on Winifred.
Yeah.
See, I didn't love that scene. I honestly, and maybe that was what kind of shut it down for me. And I will also say, with the caveat, I know I saw Hocus Pocus at some point. It didn't make a huge impact on me. So for me, the nostalgia piece wasn't really there. So I'll just put that out there.
Yeah.
I was so like, what's with the thee and the thous? I thought that was so over the top and so ridiculous. And honestly, it probably just left a bad taste in my mouth as it continued.
That's from the original movies.
Yeah. And that may be. Yeah.
I'm more like I like parallel character arcs. I just think like when you are limited to like an hour and 15-ish minutes, right? That is a bold choice and a hard choice to pull off. because there's a lot that you want to put in there. And obviously, if you have two kind of competing main characters, you want to give both of them, make both of them feel fully fleshed out, fully realized, have their, and then each of those main characters has supporting characters alongside them. And then trying to make all of those feel fleshed out is just a really daunting task. And it's hard to do in that amount of time. And I honestly feel that, like, there were humorous moments that I loved. There was a lot of things that I really liked. But I didn't think that the character arcs were as strong as they could be. Like Winifred's turn at the end, I thought came out of nowhere. No, not that I thought she didn't love her sisters, but that, you know, she suddenly, like, she didn't even try to, like, take the book. She was like super nice and, like, begging for help. And it was just this complete tonal shift in a character that happened very fast. Whereas then the Becca character, I didn't feel like had much growth at all. But maybe that's just me. I was most compelled by the boyfriend who realized that he was being mean and a bully and didn't know that he was being mean.
Okay, I did. I was like, okay, that was well done. But he's like, wait, I can't. You are weird. And she's like, but you can't say that.
Yep, I was compelled by him. And I was honestly compelled by the mayor's quest for a caramel apple. It was a good mini quest. Honestly, in terms of writing and storyline, it made it at a beginning, it had trials and tribulations in the middle, and it had a solid end. And the character grew throughout.
I would disagree that the character grew throughout. And again, for me, that was again a like, who is this for? Because if we're talking like, I can see like younger kids being all over that, you know, totally getting this. But I was like, the mayor, like, who's kind of sort of the antagonist, kind of, is reduced to just wanting a caramel apple. That's it? The mayor?
I didn't think he was an antagonist.
Well,
it's a tiny town.
Yeah.
That's a small town.
I love that it was just like, he was just such a dork and just wanted a caramel apple.
Yeah. But I do agree that that arc was well thought out. But okay, I have a question. I understand the musical numbers. I actually didn't have a huge problem with the musical numbers. I thought that was kind of funny. And I enjoyed the reactions to them too. And that was fine. But okay, so the big musical number is everyone's trying to get to the mayor. Cool. And then they get to the mayor and then
nothing happens.
And then they just leave. And I'm like, what the flag frick is this?
Because they were just told to find him. They weren't told to do anything else. They were just told to find him. They found him.
But okay.
And then stole his caramel apple.
Okay. Developmental editor.
I'm gonna interject here real quick because we have a comment from Talia, who she says she agrees about the writing, and her example here was there were so many things that were added but didn't go anywhere in the plot, like the flash mob. And so she's specifically talking about the flash mob here.
Like, I thought the mayor, you know, he's like, oh my God, it's a flash mob. I was like, okay, that's cute. That's funny. I get that. That's cute. Yeah, it didn't go anywhere. So developmental editor, that's what I do. I would be like, well, why did you do this? You can't have just cute moments in a story. It has to push the plot forward. And all that was a cute moment. Now you can claim nostalgia. There were musical numbers in the previous one. We wanted to tuck a musical number in. Cool. I get that. But again, no advancement to the plot. It just died.
It was cute. The whole point of the movie was just to be cute, to entertain us, to make us laugh, to make us smile. I assure you, they don't anticipate this to be studied at Oxford for parents.
Oh, that would be a fun class.
I think that's
it's just a fun, entertaining story, like Captain Underpants kind of a thing.
And to that point, I enjoyed, and I can't remember, Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that movie, and I agree that was huge lazy writing in that one. I enjoyed that movie. I think this one, because I just didn't have the nostalgia piece of it, I was like, can I have more alcohol, please, to get through this?
I think you have a point here, Sarah, is that, we're looking at it from like, okay, where's the plot here? Why is this not logical? Like, come on. But I think if you look at it from a standpoint of, all right, let's
Entertainment.
just like the very basic thread of holding a story together, and let's throw as much nostalgia as we can get and cram it in. Then maybe it is a success. Then maybe, like, if you look at it, because they did. And honestly, I really liked a lot of the nostalgia stuff. I loved the black cat named Cobwebs.
Yeah.
Like, that was
a great name for a cat. I like that name.
I laughed so hard when Winifred was on her broom going by and she looked in a window and freaking Hocus Pocus was on the TV. I laughed so hard. I was like, this is amazing. It's kind of like a modern day Monty Python. There's really no point. It's just fun. It's just straight up humor and entertainment. Music was fun. There were songs that we knew, and it suddenly made sense because I didn't watch this until last night, and all during the week, the students at the school where I teach were singing one of the songs from it. And I was like, wait, is that like a Hocus Pocus mashup with it? And now I understand. But it was amazing because now it's been passed on to the next generation who hadn't seen the first Hocus Pocus prior to this. So now it's something that young parents are sharing with their kids. And so it's just like a sweet handoff of what we grew up with, which was darker. The first Hocus Pocus was much darker. There was a lot more horror elements to it. Light, but there were still more horror elements.
I mean, not always light.
Not always light, because it was like a child's horror piece. These 3 freaking witches came back from the dead. And
they eat children.
And they ate children. So there was definitely like this American mythos to it.
So why didn't they do that?
Because
I know the answer, but go for it.
Aspect. Plus, also the early 90s were a weird time. I mean, Tim Burton was like at his peak at that point too. The 90s were a weird time. I think they probably look back at that and were like, wow, that was really freaking dark. Let's not go back that hard with it and make this fun, make this light. And also the Sanderson sisters have become a tremendous pop culture icon.
That was Disney being yeah, but that was Disney being clever, because Hocus Pocus was dead. It was about 3 years ago. It started to kind of pop up again.
I'd like to argue that it was not dead.
It was limping along. It was like the
I think it did make a resurgence. I think it made a resurgence.
Well, it made a resurgence because Disney brought it back up again about 3 years ago.
Yeah,
I have to give Disney huge props. Fantastic marketing. Bloody brilliant marketing.
Well, I think one of the things that made the original Hocus Pocus for me such a kind of iconic film. Iconic isn't quite right, but film that was enjoyable, even if, whatever you want to cult following, whatever you want to say, is the fact that it was dark. Like, that was a feature that I and a lot of people enjoyed. Like, so often for kids, they had Halloween movies and they were cute and they were cool and stuff like that. And like, ooh, boogie monsters. And this one was like, the cat dies. Like, the little, like, you get a happy ending, but the happy ending is that people still die. Like, and it is dark, and there are, ghosts of children and these creepy witches who are sometimes incompetent and sometimes funny, but ultimately are just trying to eat a child. Their soul. Yeah, the soul of this kid. And I thought it was a really interesting decision that in the reboot, they really, really kind of went a different direction with that. And they gave up on eating the child really fast. And they were like, oh, well, and really leaned into the comedy and the humor and that aspect. It was a choice.
Incompetence. They leaned into the incompetence.
Yeah.
But then they also empowered the other 2 sisters like we'd never seen before. which I also really
there was that. Yeah.
That for the first time, Sarah was like, I'm madder. and they both got powers, which they didn't really have in the first movie either.
But I would have, and again, tucking a lot into an hour 15, I would have liked to have seen that earlier, because it felt like, to Molly's point, it did feel like there was a lot of character and plot development in the last, character development in the last 15 minutes.
I think there was a lot sprinkled throughout. I really do. And I think it also goes beyond this movie and into the first one as well. Because the dynamics between Winifred and the sisters is that it's the three of them. There's rarely a scene where it's just one of them. So towards the end of the sequel, when Winifred's like, I'm nothing without them, she knows she's dependent on them.
Yes.
And so I honestly cried when the fizzle scene happened, because I was like, oh my God, she can't be her. She can't be Winifred without them.
And that's not where I had a problem with her character, because I 100% saw that and agreed with it. It was her demeanor. I thought it was the change in Winifred's demeanor on how she was going to achieve her goal. Right? It was a complete, every time else she has been backed into a corner, she responds with, give me what I want. I'm in control. I'm going to get what I want. I'm going to take what I want. That kind of aspect. And then suddenly she flips, and she, instead of, never before in any movie had we seen her ask for anything or ask for help or, show weakness, really. So it was more it wasn't the change in motivation. It wasn't the change in realizing that she's nothing without her sisters, which I thought was fine. I thought it was an interesting flip in her tone and demeanor at the end. That's what I mean.
Could it have been a visage that she was keeping so that her sisters, because she was the eldest, and she had raised them basically after their mother died. They were left alone. She was the caregiver the entire time. So she had this personality of being tough. Could that have dissolved once they were gone? And I don't know the answer, just kind of putting that out there.
There's no evidence of that in the previous part. I'm not saying that's a poor choice, but if you're writing and you're going to set that up, right, storytelling, then you need to give hints of that before then. And I didn't see personally. I didn't
heard it as a.
Oh,
there you go. But to somebody had brought up about the sisters starting to be like, "Hey, wait, I matter." I would have liked to have seen that earlier, and I would have liked to have seen that develop, because it felt very tucked in. It felt very much like, "Hey, wait, I matter. Oh, I just dissolved. Bye."
I would like to talk about. We're gonna, I think, start to wrap this up and then talk about some first pages in horror. But before we do, I kind of want to talk about something I think it does really, really well. And Sarah's touched upon this too. And that is some of the humorous moments.
There were some good humor moments.
Gosh. The thing about, at the beginning, them trying to convince the Sanderson sisters to go to CVS for beauty products. Or was it Walgreens? Yeah, for beauty products, and oh yeah. The souls of the children are already in there. The potion's already made. We're in the future now, and it's it was funny. There were multiple moments that I did think moments in and of themselves that were pretty funny. The Roombas.
The Roombas, I was dying when they're like, it hates mess.
The Roombas saving them from the salt circle, I thought was very
cute.
good.
That was
a good setup moment.
Yeah. That was clever. I did like the mayor, being like, this is a flash mob. I did laugh with that one. I mean, I was even to the point where when what's his name ripped off what's his name's head.
Yes.
I did, and then, there's a headless body, I was like, I was snickering. There was some good humor moments in there.
And I really like that they brought Billy back because I always wondered like what happened to him, because he's like, oh, I'm just gonna go to sleep now, I guess. And they're like, yeah, nothing happened. I was just asleep. I was just chilling there.
Just hanging out.
It's like, what happened? I thought that was really good. I like that they brought that kind of a loose end from the first movie in and explained it. I liked that. And I loved that the book got more personality. And I did like how he did have a kind of a change.
That's true.
So
The book had a character arc.
The book did have a character arc, and I really thought it was interesting. And my fiance and I were cracking up when the book was like sweating because it was nervous. I was like, it makes sense. It was made from human skin. Of course it would be sweating.
Oh my Lord. I did
the sweating book?
No. I saw the sweating. I thought it was cute, but I didn't put the pieces together that it was made from human skin. So naturally it would sweat.
Yeah.
I don't know I don't honestly know if the creators put that together.
I probably did.
I feel like
why are we cutting them short? I'm curious. Yeah. Like, I feel like we're going at them kind of hard today.
I feel like someone like my derm husband is probably going to be like, oh, well, in order to sweat, you actually need more than just the skin. You need these glands and blah, blah, blah. But no, all you need is skin. It makes sense because we said so.
But no, I did
blinking like this.
I know. I do like how Sarah
don't think about it too much.
It's a fiction. It's a fantasy story written for children.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
and
probably it was written with the nostalgia for our generation, but it was a fantasy book written for children. How different is that from us disappearing down portals, my portal ladies?
No, and I like what you said about like think about it like Monty Python, and it's like, oh, okay, it's ridiculous. I got it.
Do we have so chat at this point, if you have anything you want to add, things you thought we missed about the movie? Oh, I can talk. I'm positive I can. Feel free to add it now. Otherwise, I think we're going to switch over to some horror first pages. All right. Oh. I believe Teresa has some up. So we're going to start with one. One of our listeners has submitted a first page for us to review. It's anonymized, so we don't know who it is, but it's in the category of horror. So we're going to listen. Teresa's going to read it for us, and then we're going to provide some feedback.
All right, ready? Okay, here we go. Olivia felt it in her bones. It wasn't a jolt of lightning or a flood of emotions, but a slow, inexorable trickle, the barest drip, drip, drip of dread that something was off. She couldn't explain what. It began as a summer project, but quickly became something more. She sprayed the layer of foam over the glass panel that would fit into the, and I'm going to mispronounce this word, Paudarium tank. Watching as it expanded more than she'd anticipated. She carefully placed pots into the drying black goo, which would be concealed once the plants fully germinated. For the piece that would become the bottom, she placed a layer of lava rocks and ghostwood branches and filled in the smaller areas with leca and substrates. Then she filled it with water and added the pump for circulation. It took hours, but Olivia was lost in it, placing everything just so. The sun outside the opened garage door slid through a clear sky. Without warning, Olivia felt an intense tugging sensation in her gut. She cried out, dropping a ceramic pot that shattered on the garage floor. Frank burst through the interior door to the laundry room. What was that? Are you okay? Olivia was clutching her stomach, unable to speak, eyes staring at the pot shards, but not seeing them. Her husband rushed over and touched her back. Olivia? It was gone as quickly as it came. There was a release, an absence of pressure that had just dominated her entire stomach, pressing against her from within. She shivered as she stood. Just then, when it went away, she swore it felt wrong. It felt like it slithered away. She looked at her husband. I'm okay, I think. Just a weird pain. She bent to collect the shards of broken pot. Maybe Maybe you're pregnant, Frank said. She paused mid-stoop. And that's it for the first page.
I'm thinking.
I'm thinking too.
First pages can sometimes be hard because, well, for multiple reasons. It's hard to critique because you don't know where the story's going. So you
Right.
have to try to infer where you think the story is going and if it's setting up what you think it should be setting up. Right? It's also very difficult because there's so much that you kind of need to accomplish in a first page.
Mm-hmm. You have to
And
set. Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was going to say, what are you trying to set?
Yeah.
Tone, align the characters, set the stage, do some description, have some sort of a reason for the reader to turn the page. And it's hard. It's a lot to do in a first page.
I think one of the things that I really liked about this, though, was the first of the second paragraph, first sentence, where it says it began as a summer project, because I'm instantly like, ooh, what's it?
Mm-hmm.
What began? And she kind of gives us the imagery of the paludarium and just getting that all set up. And then we kind of took a departure from that.
Mm-hmm.
Which is where I got a little lost after It Took Hours, but Olivia was lost in it, because I get that. Totally have done that as a paludarium terrarium builder.
Did I say the word right?
You did, yeah. Paludarium, you got it.
For reference, I'm reading it on my phone so I don't take up precious computer power. So I'm not trying to be rude. Got it on my phone. Okay.
And then she dropped a ceramic pot, which was separate. I assume.
She felt, so without warning, Olivia felt an intense tugging sensation in her guts. It was so surprising. She cried out and dropped a ceramic pot.
Which is separate from the paludarium.
Yes, I assume so. Unless would they put a ceramic pot in the paludarium, or would that be?
You could. Depends on how big it is. And I know I'm getting way lost in details. But that was just the disconnect for me. But I do like the imagery there of like that idea of a shattered pot, because I know what that sounds like. And so that tapped into my sensory memories there.
And we learned a lot about the husband.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't know that that's her husband. We don't know who. We just know it's Frank.
She said her husband.
She said she looked at her husband.
Oh, her husband rushed over. That's true. I was just then maybe I was originally confused because it's just Frank at first, and I'm like, who's Frank?
Mm-hmm.
But then he does. You're right. This person does explain it right away.
Yeah. But I think that was pretty good. You get a pretty good idea of their relationship early on, because some couples, something crashes to the ground and they're like, that was weird. Some couples ignore it and assume everything's fine. Some couples go running out to see what's okay, and there's the "what'd you break now, you idiots?" We don't have any of that here. We have a concerned partner.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess for my even better if would be, I honestly think maybe starting at the second paragraph. The first paragraph, I get what's being done on the first paragraph, but actually it began as a summer project, but quickly became something more, to me, is more compelling.
I would agree.
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you can go.
I was going to say the rest of it doesn't tie in. It's almost like a prologue.
Yeah, it's almost confusing because you're trying to say, like, what is it that she's feeling in her bones, and you don't really understand what is being referenced. It's almost like and then it is a flashback after the first. It gets a little mentally confusing for the reader. And And then the other even better if that I have is I think, and maybe it's because of how it was the text field is for our submission, but I would have really potentially play around with when she's dropping the pot. I would have loved to see a change in like structure or grammar that would have jolted us into the new section. Right? There's a hard transition here between the character working and gardening and then the pot burst, like a pain, the ceramic pot breaking, and then a dialogue section. And I would have loved like a visual cue and a visual break. Because if it's going to be a hard transition, it's a hard transition. So like really jolting us, I think could work well. But that's something to play around with.
Yeah, because to that point, and this is hard in the first page, we get a little bit of an introduction to Frank, but not much of one. I don't know if it's neat. Honestly, I'm not sure it's needed, but I agree. There's a rough transition, and I actually disagree with you, Molly, on where it is. I think I'm fine with the without warning, Olivia felt an intense tugging sensation. She cried out, dropping the ceramic pot that shattered on the garage floor. Frank bursting in, fine. But and maybe it's where it is in the text, but his dialogue is a little clumsy to me, how it jumps into dialogue immediately. And then there's no, perhaps what's needed, Frank burst through the interior door to the laundry room. What was that? You okay? He put his hands on his hips, leaning over her. An action, I think, from him was a little bit more needed there. And maybe that would have assisted with that transition. The other thing too, and this is just a technical thing, and this is me speaking as an editor, was clutching is a step away from the action. You want to get rid of as many and get rid of as many as you can, because it takes the reader just slightly out of the immediacy.
Well, and the author didn't do it anywhere else. So it almost felt like a change in verb tense. It wasn't, but it almost felt that way when, that's just a very small thing that helps though.
Any editor would catch. Yeah. Any editor would catch that. So I wouldn't stress about that at all.
Otherwise, I love where it ends on the first page, right? Especially as a woman, you're like, maybe you're pregnant. Oh, I need to turn the page. Right? If we're talking, right, the number one thing for a first page, does it get you to turn to the second? I turn to the second page.
Yeah, because that's, like you said, it's such an emotionally charged sentence. And it could go any number of ways from there. So absolutely, I totally agree that that's a wonderful place to have left us off there to be like, what's happening next?
And we have no idea what her reaction is going to be. We don't know her well enough. We have no inkling
is this a good thing or bad thing?
Yeah.
And that's going to tell us a lot about the character, too, within these first few pages. So there's great character development potential here.
Unless, going back to the beginning, those first 3 sentences, now that we, look at that, Olivia felt it in her bones.
It being pregnancy.
It wasn't a jolt of lightning or a flood of emotions, but a slow, inexorable trickle, the barest drip, drip, drip of dread that something was off. She couldn't explain what.
Okay.
But I agree that the stronger paragraph would be to start, because we had not even put those 2 pieces together. And I'm not sure a reader will.
It's definitely, if that's what's going on, that's definitely interesting and something to play with. I do want to tag or give a shout out to some of the chat. One person says that they think this is intriguing. Another person says that they would keep reading this. And another said that they feel like it clearly showed protagonist is working toward this big picture project, but she's so focused on the meticulous details. Maybe that's why it took it so long to complete. Which I thought interesting, right? Because
that was well done,
right? We often, like, it's very relatable, As
Yeah.
people, we have a big project, but then we're hyper focused on the details. So that was a good way of showing that.
And
Good job, anonymous writer.
I love the description of time. This was fantastic. The sun outside, the opened garage door slid through a clear sky. Clear delineation of time with a really great description. We know she's in the garage. We know that the weather's clear. And we kind of have kind of a like sunny feeling from it. So nice job. We got one sentence, ton of work done.
My one of my biggest points to consider, of course, these are just suggestions, would be a bridge. And I think, Molly, you were kind of tapping into this as well, was something connecting the thoughts between it began as a summer project, but quickly became something more. She sprayed the layer of foam. Something in between those two sentences. Even if it's a different paragraph, that first one's a great, like, hey, something was happening, like Molly was saying, like that's a great kind of place to get the story rolling. And it just, that first line is a great foreshadow, and it just jumps us into the moment. So that first line implies that it's already happened. This is her reflecting, or this is a narrator reflecting on what went down. So it just felt like a sudden tense shift there. So that would be my biggest suggestion for it. But yeah, I'm all in with the story. I'd absolutely keep reading this.
Yeah. Do we want to? We're getting kind of late into this episode. We've been recording for a while. I know we can get down rabbit holes. Do we want to wrap up on this first page?
I think so.
Yeah. So thank you, anonymous writer. We really, really enjoyed it. And hopefully this was helpful in your quest to perfect your first page.
Okay. This was fun.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. At this point, sometimes we would add extra first pages, but I think we've been talking for a while, probably talking your guys' ears off, and I think we're gonna wrap it up here. If you liked, I really appreciate everyone for listening, all those people in the chat. Thank you for joining in. Hopefully you enjoyed yourself. Hopefully had fun. Give us a like, give us a thumbs up. It helps other people find us, and they can join in too for these discussions and provide valuable feedback to writers. And also, Culture Club is a lot of fun. Even whether you enjoy the piece of media or not, right? It's still a lot of fun.
Oh, I love tugging apart things. It's so much fun.
Yeah. And Sarah, if they want to find us more, where should they go?
Extra first pages, but they can head on over to our website, semisagesofthepages.com. They can also go on over to our Discord channel, Semi Sages of the Pages, or they could check us out on YouTube, which I pulled up in the background to see what our live stream looks like. So we're everywhere.
We are everywhere. And if you're interested in submitting your first page, we would love to get it. We do try to tie the first pages in with the theme of what we're talking about. But please just go ahead and submit. We'll go ahead and we'll tie it together at whatever point you submit. I know English.
Yeah, English is great.
And to do that, you go to our Semi Sages page. Yeah, words. Speaking.
Words are difficult, and otherwise, thanks everybody for listening. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Take care.